Alcohol. It is something many of us consume on a regular basis. But what exactly goes into our drinks? And is there a safer alternative? At King's College London, Doctors Sadie Boniface and Sally Marlowe research into various aspects of our relationship with alcohol.
Alcohol is a fantastic drug. It makes you feel happy, makes you feel relaxed, makes you feel sociable.
Throughout human history, there are records of different substances or different things being used either medicinally or recreationally. And I think alcohol is just one of those.
It's absolutely embedded in our society. And it's this little drug in a bottle, which is legal, that can make life feel a bit better.
I do think that if alcohol was invented now, it would absolutely be illegal, but because it's so entwined in our history, it's not going anywhere.
But at the end of the day, the reason why people drink is it makes them feel better, at least in the short term. In the long term, it's a different story.
So how does alcohol actually make us drunk? Alcohol first enters the stomach, where around 20% of which is absorbed. After that, it passes through to the small intestine, where the remaining 80% is absorbed into the bloodstream. As it reaches the heart, it then travels through the entire body. It may take a few drinks to actually kick in, but when it does, it hits the brain fast. As the alcohol passes through the prefrontal cortex of the brain, it mimics the neurotransmitter glutamate. Your inhibitions soon begin to loosen, and it becomes increasingly difficult to concentrate. You may all be aware of the term breaking the seal, which means having the repeated need to urinate after your first trip to the bathroom. However, it's just a myth. When you begin to drink alcohol, your brain stops producing vasopressin, which means your kidneys no longer know how to manage the body's water intake. In turn, it is sent straight to your bladder, resulting in the recurring need to urinate. Although it does not matter how long you leave it, you will still need to go just as much. Once the alcohol begins to work on the back of your brain, you become far less steady on your feet.
Now the curtain is raised.
When you staggered home and got into bed, you may experience an illusion of the walls spinning. This occurs due to a bizarre effect that alcohol has on our ears. The ears send signals to the brain to aid balance. However, when intoxicated, tiny hairs in the inner ear bend and tell the brain that you're rotating even though you are not. Not much is known in the way of a cure, but sometimes a trip. And you can imagine he didn't feel too great the following morning. So what if there was a way of having a good time, but without the nasty consequences? Well, Professor David Nutt claims to have developed a synthetic substance, which apparently does just that. It is known as Alcosynth.
We could make a safe synthetic alcohol. Modern neuroscience, modern pharmacology would allow me to create a substance which would give you the same pleasure as alcohol, but not rot your liver or your heart or your brain, not cause addiction. And we can have an antidote, so you could then sober up and drive home safely. That is within the compass of modern neuropharmacology.
We spoke to Dr. James Nichols to find out more.
Dave Nutt may disagree with this, but in some ways, from what I've understood, actually what's happening is it's making a virtue out of some of the side effects of benzodiazepines, which is things like dizziness, which is a bit like being drunk. And so if you can just capture those side effects and get rid of some of the other effects, you have something which is a bit like alcohol, in the same way that a lot of legal highs are, you'll get substances that are a bit like cocaine or a bit like LSD. It strikes me as a similar kind of a principle. You create an analogue of a drug.
I think synthetic alcohol is a really interesting idea because, let's face it, we are where we are. We like alcohol as a society. We have it in our lives. So if we could come up with something which does the same job, I personally don't see a problem with that.
I find it difficult to see Alcosynth as anything other than another addition to the general kind of collection of drugs that are a bit like other drugs that are out there.
We also live in a society where people get very moralistic about the idea of drugs and, you know, creating things, which is quite hypocritical when you think about our relationship with alcohol and tobacco.
There would have to be a lot of education being done about, okay, if something was developed that was safer and better than alcohol, there would have to be a lot of work done at the start to kind of make sure that there's not stigma attached to that, and that, you know, that's an alternative. It's maybe a healthier alternative, a safer alternative than regular alcohol.
You'd have to kind of synthesize a heck of a lot and hope that people at the end of the day go, well, okay, for the sake of not having a hangover, I'll forgo all the other things and the ease of access. And I don't know, I don't want to kind of write it off completely. I'm naturally slightly sceptical about it, but I may be proved wrong in 50 years' time. I think David has the view that in 50 years' time, I don't want to be drinking alcohol anymore. Maybe he's right.
Alcohol is such a harmful drug, can be such a harmful drug. Why wouldn't we swap it for something which is safer, which can do the same job? Let's stop pretending we don't need the job doing. Of course we do. Otherwise, alcohol wouldn't be with us millennia later. It's still here. We still use it. It's part of life. We could make it safer.
We took a trip to Ringwood Brewery in order to discover what exactly goes into our pints. The first step of the brewing process is to pour malted barley into a machine known as the mash tun. From there, it will be crushed and mixed with hot water known as liquor. It will then stand in the mash tun for 1 hour. This process converts the starches into sugars. When the sugars and liquor are fully mixed, it is transferred into a large unit called the copper. Hops will then be added into the mix. This acts as a bittering agent. It will then be left to boil for 1 hour. Once the ingredients have been converted into a bittersweet sugar solution, they will be left to cool. It will then be time to pump the solution into the fermenting system, where the yeast is added. 72 hours later, the beer is complete and to its finest quality.
It's a very active scene at the moment, and it's quite exciting, but I think anything that generates an interest in beer and gets people talking about beer, it's got to be good for our business. In extremes and high levels, it is bad for you. But there's been lots of research to say a glass of wine or a glass of beer a day is actually beneficial. Sensible drinking is good for everybody, especially for the business.
The idea that alcohol can be beneficial to the body is a controversial one. But what do our experts think?
People think a glass of red wine a day is good for the heart, but that was only ever actually in postmenopausal women and men of a certain age.
We hear a lot about liver disease through alcohol. We hear about how it's linked to breast cancers and other cancers of the throat.
If you kind of look at the biases in some of these studies, maybe there aren't any beneficial effects.
When you look at the people who are making the arguments about alcohol being good for you and look at who they're funded by, they tend to be funded, their research, by, guess who? The alcohol industry.
I recommend people under 15 don't drink. 15 to 17 year olds don't drink very much, and that people who are 18 and over drink less than 14 units a week.
Life is pretty hard. Life is chaotic. Life chucks stuff at you that you don't expect. And at the end of the day, we're all born, we all live, and we all die. And trying to do that without any sort of dimmer switch when the lights are shining too brightly, I think is a big ask. So alcohol, I think, for some people just helps turn the lights down a little bit when it's just, everything's just a bit too bright.
Our drinking culture has evolved over the centuries, and whether its future lies in a synthetic alternative is still uncertain. While it is clear that there are no proven benefits to drinking alcohol, it will remain a significant part of our culture for many years to come.